Hello and welcome to Silver Tears Tarot. So today we're going to answer a question that comes directly from my inbox. And this one is about so what is happening with this energy when it is just so intense and so thick, I feel like I can barely breathe. What is going on? And as a satellite question, what is the nature of this relationship? If we could just dig into that a little bit. So that's what we're going to do today. It's I like to go and get the questions that come from the emails, but a lot of times they're kind of combination questions that I piece together from several of you asking the same types of questions. In this case, though, the person who asked it will recognize it as being their specific question. But the reading is a general one. It's going to be a general reading for this collective, which means it's not going to resonate for everybody, and it really shouldn't. But if it resonates for you, if this is your reading, then maybe go ahead and subscribe. Maybe go ahead and take a look at some of the other readings that have come out, because all of these readings have been very much connected up in the messaging. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to look at, of course, is going to be that energetic backdrop. So this is the context in which we're able to take these messages for today. So this is the energy of today, just kind of overarching energy. And then we're going to look into all this intensity, because I woke up and I felt almost a blanket of that intensity that this person was talking about in their email. And I thought, what a timely question. We're going to go ahead and ask it today in case anyone else is feeling it. It's like a heavy blanket of energy that I'm feeling, and so I'm curious to see what comes out here to describe that. Seems like the cards are, well, no, they have spoken. There's a there's a Two of Pentacles that's coming out here in the reverse. It's a sense of throwing you off kilter a little bit. It has that effect, but it almost seems like that's the whole thing. It's an energy of anxiety, but yet one that you feel like you can kind of work through. Things are moving maybe a little bit more quickly than is completely comfortable in this energy. There's not all of it. There's some kind of undercurrent in the current energy that makes you feel a little bit more alive, but it's not entirely pleasant, if that makes any sense. Heavy energy, though, heavy buzz to it. We've got the Nine of Fire in the reverse and the Temperance card coming out in the reverse to reinforce that message of just kind of a lack of balance, and yet things are happening kind of quickly. Not necessarily in a coordinated way, and yet there is a sense of a little bit of release. And that's what I'm feeling with this Nine of Fire in the reverse here. So there are places where there has been resistance, where some of that resistance in the energy is fading, and you might not know why, but you might notice it as a phobia that doesn't impact you as much as it usually does, or something like that. But maybe there's just not enough room for that in this heavy energy. There's definitely still something about that impasse, something about energy that won't resolve. That is definitely still part of today's energy, and we've seen that in some of the energy here in the last couple of days. So that's still here a little bit. So that buzz, it's kind of a little bit of a crackle to it, So there's a Four of Wind here saying that this is basically a raw spot, a place that hasn't been healed the way that you would want for it to be healed, and a feeling of that impacting you. It's like an injury in part of your leg causing you to limp, only this is an emotional injury that hasn't been healed enough, such that it kind of causes you to almost limp emotionally. But it does have that sense of being temporary, so I would say that's positive. It's difficult I can't feel too badly about it, because it does seem like it's not going to last very long. This is like a wind or a little bit blowing through. This is like the energetic weather, and you know how the weather can change. And it feels like that's the reason we need to get this on a fairly regular basis. So we've got the Three of Fire here in the reverse, and this is This is the feeling of setting something into motion, not the feeling of already having set something into motion. But instead, what it feels like is kind of a lack of motivation and having a difficult time setting things into motion. So that's a little bit of what's happening in this energy, too. It's got some of that fuzziness that we were seeing a few days ago, a few readings ago, when there was just this kind of fuzzy feeling overall. There's also this sense of, I don't want to call it existential dread because that's a little bit too strong and too abstract for what this feeling is. This is about you and your situation. You're finding yourself maybe even thinking about them in situations where you would think you wouldn't. You would think you have other things going on, and yet you continue to think about this person. Oh, looks like we dropped a couple, but they're all face down. Okay, we have the Death card in reverse here. Here's one we've seen a fair amount of, and we know there's some change happening with both of you, and this is energy that's kind of, you're both bathing in this energy a little bit. There is some resistance to change, but I get the sense here that it is more than just a weariness. It is also part of the shift that I've seen happening in you. It's like you need a little bit of a break from that shift, and you're not really seeming to get one right now. It's got a sense like things are coming out of left field at you, and it's not necessarily nothing you can really do about it. So this one feels like it should be in the upright. There is some mystery here, and one of the good things about it, one of the reasons that you are not being as negatively impacted by some of this lack of balance as you might otherwise be, has a lot to do with the fact that you've recently gotten more familiar with the idea of making decisions with a little bit less information. So that's kind of what's happening in the current energy right now. That's that energetic backdrop. It's not comfortable. It does almost take a certain amount of energy just to kind of cut through it and navigate it, even without all of the things that may be happening in your day, in your life, in addition to it. So let's go ahead and look into what you need to know about this heavy energy. So we're getting some verification of it here, that it's feeling a little bit heavy for a lot of people. Not making you feel like you really have all the balance that you would want to have. And yet you're still kind of working through it. There are certainly challenges and difficulties. You're working through it. You're able to see where some of the chinks in your armor are, or places where your healing hasn't quite taken place, and it still needs some work. But there's also this resistance, and I definitely feel that on your person's side. Just being tired, but in addition to that, it's very uncomfortable. So that's kind of the energy that I find you in today, and the whole collective. That's you and your person. So let's get in there and just see, when it feels like it's so heavy that you are having a hard time breathing, what is it that's happening there? What is happening with your connection in this? Okay, let's see. We've got Eight of Wands. That's the movement of the energy, which I guess that makes good sense. With that much energy moving through you that quickly, it gives you pause. It gives you a need to kind of sit and look at the situation. And I mean, I feel the energy of the weight of the energy on me right now. I feel like it is impacting the way I am delivering the words to you, but there is a lot coursing through the collective right now, and we see it over here, very intense levels of energy. And so, but the thing that is most significant about it is just how much there's a strong sense of self-trust, even in the face of things not having slowed down and things not yet being resolved. So we've got the Seven of Wind and the Six of Wind, both of which are in reverse, and then the Devil card in the upright. So The Seven of Wind is a card that I really do like to see in the reverse a lot of times. This is like the Seven of Swords, so it's that air energy, and this is like the Six of Swords, where it's also that air energy. So the Six of Wind talks a little bit about what we see over here, where things just aren't calming down. There's a lot of movement, and you being kind of asked to make decisions and move forward despite not necessarily knowing the answers yet. There's a lot of that's already kind of happening, despite the fact the energy hasn't slowed down, but you're up to it. And so is your person. You are up to it. There's a feeling of kinship that is growing here, but it's at the risk of it being a little too early. So we know that, and I can explain that. So we know that in recent times here, in these recent past few weeks, your person has moved a lot closer to you energetically. Okay. They've moved a lot closer to you energetically, and it has changed things for you. It's created a lot of opportunities, but it also creates a little bit of risk. And some of the risk is of the two of you in the places where you're not healed, which we see there are some over here, but in the places that are not healed, there's this sense that it may be especially difficult for you to continue to heal in some of these places because of the proximity of their energy. So that's where the Devil card comes in. It's not, hey, things are as bad as they ever were. It's just watch out. There may be some places where you were making some good progress, but this is either going to stop that progress or cause you to have to reevaluate it and maybe have to redo some things or fill in some gaps. It feels more like it's more a feeling of needing to fill in some gaps. There are some pieces of wisdom that you went after that you've not really had the opportunity to secure. So not that you did a poor job when you went into the thinking cave, the hermit cave, to do that thinking. It's just you gathered what seemed like it made sense, and it turns out there's probably more to it that you're going to want to gather. There's more of a perspective that you need to gain, and what you're feeling is kind of the pieces, the rattle of what's not tied down as the energy moves through. And part of this new perspective would help to tie some of those things down and lessen that rattle. But I do see that you are handling, this one's part of the reading today too. So the Nine of Wind here, you're handling things really well comparatively. So this amount of energetic movement with you, and some of it very specific things that are happening, would have been more difficult for you to handle and to work through at an earlier time. Like if you were to take yourself and drop the old you from 5 years ago into the place where you are now, just think about how you would handle that without those experiences that you've had over those last few years, and I would again say that check out what you're going to be able to accomplish a few years from now. But this is just kind of showing me how far you've come. There's a lot of self-trust in here. There's a lot of, even though you may not feel like you are ready to move forward, and there's this sense of being knocked off your balance a little bit here, actually quite a bit maybe of being knocked off your balance. But even with that, there's still this sense of, you're going to be okay. There's a sense of protection coming from within yourself. And we've got the Father of Wind here, not a small amount of passion to move things forward as well. So that's kind of a very positive thing. You have a lot of energy, and you're starting to learn how to direct elements of it. So that's kind of a big deal, but you've still got this pain hanging in you, like just dragging you down, constantly dragging you back, and your own strength is what's bringing you away from that and allowing you to prevail nonetheless. However, there is some healing, and you can feel the edges of it here that are going to need some addressing, and so you're probably going to need some separation from this person in order to do that. Now, with your energy in such close proximity, some of that is this stuff that's a little bit harder to address when they're in such close proximity. So there's going to be some learning for you, and we'll look into this a little bit over here, but there's going to be some learning for you that comes from how do you, we already started asking this question, but how do you do that with them so close? How do you separate and still do the healing that needs to be done while you're in separation, even though their energy seems to feel like it is so close, despite the fact that honestly their behaviors have them running in some cases even farther away. But they're tentative. A lot of these people are very tentative, and we've seen in the previous readings, they're moving slowly. They're moving very slowly. So we've got the Eight of Water here in reverse. There is more that both of you still need to learn, and it's going to have, so you've got this energy, but it's like pent up. You've got this energy of movement and passion and wanting to move forward and do something, but it's not necessarily the right next step, and everything about you knows that. Yet you're ready to move forward. So there's a quest that you need to go on to truly be able to evaluate deep down what it is that's going to be able to make you happy. And until you unlock that and use some of this energy that's built up for that, you're going to have a hard time focusing and really getting motivated in any particularly useful direction. And I don't mean that you won't be able to do anything. That would be overly dramatic. But I feel like as far as it relates to reconciliation within yourself, reconciliation with this person, possibly reunion with this person, where reconciliation is getting on the same page and reunion is actually having the opportunity to come back together. If you have that, if you have this piece or in order and you're able to kind of get the rest of this healing done, you're going to be much better set for that reconciliation and that reunion. But at this point, these are pieces that would still be in the way for you. And you're discovering now which pieces are tougher to manage with them in the picture. Yet we know it's going to get managed, and that the two of you are going to develop into what you need to develop into. So we have the Empress and the Star, and these are like reassurance and confidence almost that come up with these. The Empress is a sense of development, but it's got this feeling of it's implied. It's not development that's already occurred. And so, you can see how far you've come in here just by how much better you're handling this than you might ordinarily have been handling it. And this is regular day-to-day stuff. It's not always going to be things to do with your soulmate. It is also things to do with your soulmate. It's you being able to hold back from making that communication. It's you for, holding back from, you may be the runner or you may be the chaser in the runner-chaser dynamic, but you're not doing very much chasing, This is really kind of a bright light. We're going to look a little bit more deeply into this when we get into the extended here in a minute. We're going to look into you first, and then we'll go to the extended, and we'll get a feel for, just give us a little bit more of a feel for what it is that's happening when this energy is so thick, because it feels like there has been, something has cracked open for you over these past few days, and there's still a little bit of resistance to it, and I want to understand what's happening with you and what's happening with your person, and I think we might just take you and lay you out side by side and see how that looks. So we'll do that in the extended. For now, let's take a closer look at you and see, in light of all this, what you should be focusing on right now. So let's see. We have the Page of Coins, I believe. Yep. Page of Coins. This is all about keeping yourself open to the lessons. Staying open to the lessons. In this energy here, it seems like you're doing a nice job of that. Okay, you have the Brother of Fire that has come out in the reverse, and the Sister of Earth that has come out in the upright. So the Sister of Earth is like the Page of Coins. Very similar energy between these two cards, and that is what they represent. The Sister of Earth does represent that same energy. It's about being open. It's about learning and really just making yourself wide open, because here with the Brother of Fire, you have a strong tendency to have that resistance, to sometimes watch for it in yourself. Watch for yourself to have a tendency to want to resist, to have a tendency to want to push things aside that seem like they are different from what you already feel to be true. So you may not feel like you're a very judgmental person when it comes to the facts, but there may be some topics where you are more judgmental than you are otherwise, and these are things for you to be looking for. Those are going to be some of your greatest sources of learning, not just that very topic where you're finding yourself to be a little bit resistant, but also look into why the resistance. And we want this one. Let's see here. So this is the Strength card that's in reverse. I'm going to put it over here with the instability of this Brother of Fire, because this is kind of something that's threatening you, but you're going to be able to use it as a tool. So basically, when you find these situations where You feel like the fear is outweighing the strength, which is essentially what's happening in these places where you start to feel really resistant. Start to pull that apart. Grab it by the tail like you will have done if you got triggered here in the last couple of days. If you were one of those ones that got triggered with me over the last few days, and realized that you had something by the tail and it was time to grab it and work something else out for yourself. So you're going to need to find a little bit of guidance in order to do this. There is definitely a tendency that you're going to have to want to push this one away, to want to sweep it under the rug and not deal with it. There's also going to be a tendency that you may have to hide in something that feels good, that feels better. Watch for that. This is that devil card sticking out. It's also that piece that represents the part that's difficult for you and your person to solve when your energy is in such close proximity. Look for yourself to find ways to want to control the situation and to want to wrap things up that are not ready to be wrapped up. So this is the World card, and it talks about something being unfinished, but it's something so irritating to you, so constantly bothersome to you, that you will go to great lengths to try and wrap it up, and you will try and exert control over the situation in order to make that happen. But it's not necessarily a situation where you can do that. There is something that's moving at its own pace here. We've got the Lovers card and the Brother of Wind in reverse. The Brother of Wind in reverse is kind of an energy of your own, like it's you holding yourself back, but in ways that you don't realize until you're in the middle of it, and it's hard to stop doing, that you've been holding yourself back. And yet you've got yourself in a situation where it's a little bit frustrating, because you feel like there's got to be an easy answer to just kind of shut this off and end this cycle, and that's not the energy that's coming through. This is a situation where instead you're going to be inclined to want to really just sort of you'll have to slow down, take a look at the big picture, and figure out what needs to be done. And above all else, really, really open yourself up to the learning, because there's something here that isn't open to you yet. Something that isn't open to you yet because it isn't the end of this cycle yet. And it is, like I said, moving at its own pace. With the Lovers card, the significance of it being the Lovers card, though, is really, I think, more that it has to do with, it's like the same energy as this Devil card, only in that it's the link between the two of you that forces you to have to deal with this situation. It's the bond between the two of you that forces you to have to deal with this situation. So you find yourself at a crossroads here, and it's not necessarily an easy one. Again, this is one of those situations where there's not a wrong way to go. It doesn't matter which direction you go. You still have the option to get where you need to go and to finish what you're trying to accomplish, but you simply will not do it in the same amount of time. One of the trails is steeper, the other one's a little bit longer and causes you to go through some lessons again. So again, no wrong turns, but there's definitely something that needs to be completed here, and you're fighting it. We see it over here. Your person has something similar. We'll look at your person more in the extended to kind of see what's happening in this heavy energy, because it is very much a stop-go energy. It's like you're feeling how intensely they have been pulled toward you and yet felt like they needed to be pushed away. And I don't know if that's how this is how it feels as I'm reading into this and as I'm feeling the energy. That's what I feel like I need to say. But it's just really heavy and difficult and unresolved. There's a lot of unresolved, but things that you want to make resolved, and yet you're handling it well. So you've got the Six of Earth. You know when things aren't right. You know when the energy isn't even and isn't working the way that it should be for you. That is a significant thing. This is huge, the lesson that you've learned in the recent past in the situation with your person. And by recent past, in some cases, this is years. You know, the situation with you and your person has taught you a great many things. And one of the things that you have relatively recently come to terms with is how much you hadn't been treated as equally as or you hadn't been treated equally. You hadn't been putting in the same as what you were getting back. And now you can't unsee that, and you know when you are getting what you deserve and when you're not. We also have the Fool coming out here in reverse. This is very much that energy of staying in the game until you complete it. This is not yet completed with this Universe card. A lot of times when we see this is not the end of the cycle, this is not over, this is something that is easier for you to be like, it's not over. It's just you're at this point where you really just, the pressure is so heavy from this energy that you're looking for a way out of not just this situation, but symbolically in every other smaller situation that feels uncomfortable. It's like it's difficult to have that sort of pressure when you've got this underlying foundation of so much pressure, and yet a resistance to getting to some of the healing that needs to happen in order to resolve this for you. It is not a comfortable place to be. So that tells us a little bit of what's happening in this energy. We're going to go into the extended now. We're going to look into, we're going to break you and your person apart, and we're going to look at how it's working for you, how it's working for them, and we're going to do separate decks for the two of you. And then we're going to dig a little bit more deeply into this, which is really kind of your own personal path and the piece that we always want to make sure that we get in all these readings, because this collective is very invested in actually healing, not just hearing about the situation, but also saying, all right, here's what's happening in this situation. Here's how I can use that in my day-to-day to try and make things better. And you will. So if you want to go to the extended, the link is down below. I look forward to seeing you there. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you again in the next reading.